get to talk and complain and passionately engage in the conversations of teaching because there's not a whole lot of places we can do that with a lot of like safety and security. So I'm trying to make that happen. A couple of things. One is I'm really trying to get this like new camera and lighting situation down, and I thought recording in the dark would be a little bit easier. So it's literally Monday night. It's like way past dark, and I'm sitting in the corner of my house where I like do all my recording, and like the lighting looks okay, like it looks fine, but there's just something that's a little bit spooky about it. So I'm gonna figure it out someday once I get like really good at this. So and that'll be soon. I'm already so good. I don't know what you guys are talking about. That's so disrespectful to say anything otherwise. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So today based on the title, this is something that I like wanted to talk about for a while just because it's like one of those things that's one, I feel like that there's a lot of conversation that can be had with it, but two, it's just like something that I think about all the time because I took this kind of goes back to like my first graduate degree, to be honest. I did a degree that kind of allowed me to like pick and choose the classes I got to take as long as it was like under this big umbrella of like literacy. So I did my first master's in English education, meaning that like I, could teach higher level English courses, I could learn more about educational philosophy, I could literally do anything in that realm. And it was a really cool program because like I said, I got to like pick and choose the courses that I wanted to teach. So I took a curriculum class because my goal at the time was like to design curriculum and maybe someday that I could be a curriculum designer. Like, I don't know. I had like big goals at the time, but I don't recall them really being much more than, hey, I want to get a master's degree so I can like move up on like the pay scale and in the realms of like understanding teaching a little bit more, right? So this kind of comes from like that initial idea that I had a long time ago, but it's also this idea of like understanding and misunderstanding of like what curriculum is and what curriculum looks like. I think I could talk for like hours and hours, but like I won't do that today because I want it to be a little bit of a shorter episode just to like get some thoughts going. And also so I could like post. I'm trying to like be more consistent with this. It's Monday night, like I said, and I just started school back last week for like new teacher stuff because I'm starting at a brand new school this year again. And I'm exhausted, I'm tired, but I'm trying to be like consistent because I think the biggest thing that I've heard and learned about and have seen working for me is like this idea of being consistent and like posting. So I don't know. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of you out there listening right now, but maybe someday that's going to be super ironic because everyone's going to want to listen, right? Thank you so much. And if as at the bit as we're at the start of this, if you find that there's somebody that might need to hear these conversations or might enjoy having these conversations or might enjoy listening to my amazing voice as they, cook or clean or dance around their house or whatever they do, share this with them. I feel like that's how things go, right? Like word of mouth. Like the way that I find most podcasts and most people on the internet is through word of mouth. So the more that you can think of somebody that says like, oh, like I just listened to this podcast, like I'd really love to talk to somebody about it, share it with them and tell them to listen. Tell them to listen in two times speed. Tell them to just read the description. Tell them to slide into my DMs. The initial part of this is more self promotion than I thought it would be because I don't know where this episode's going to go, not going to lie. I do have actual notes this time. I say that every time. I'm getting better. And I did want to start with something because I think this past week, as I've been getting into like new teacher stuff and seeing my classroom for the first time and all of these other things, I got to kind of like reminiscing, right? Like I started a new school, one that I feel like I'm gonna hopefully stay at for a while for the first time in a minute, right? Like this one finally makes sense to me. I'm gonna finish my counseling degree this year. Starting at a brand new school, and I'm really hopeful that like all of these things coming together will be positive for me, right? So I just posted a video about this recently, but this is something I've done for the 10 years that I've been teaching is I always save things that like students give me, right? Like there are like big things that are like really nice notes that students will leave for me, or there are like, thank you cards that are like drawings that like are really cool and really like, match like my personality and my style that I keep. And there are, ones that are like a little bit more sentimental where it's like they'll pick a stick up off the ground and they'll write their name on it and they'll give it to me, right? Like so I keep a lot of these things and I put all of them at the end of the year in like a big memory box, and I have a big memory box that I kind of devote to like every year. So like when I finish the year, it's kind of like a way for me to really round out the end of the year and say like, okay, I'm saying goodbye to this year. I'm getting some closure on all of these things that have happened, and it allows me to look back later, right? Like I've looked back at my first year teaching box like so many times because Like, I don't know, it really does show you a way of like moving on, right? And in that, while those boxes are like up in my attic and I can look at them whenever I want, I do also have like this core like happy teaching wall is what I've called it, right? And these are the objects and the messages and the notes that students have sent me that like really prove to me that I've made a difference, right? Like it's the random cards from a student that 4 years later they said that I told them that they were a good writer one time, and they took that with them into throughout their high school and like really took that to heart and wrote me a message about it with their graduation announcement. It's the messages that say like, hey, Kassick, no one's ever given me the time and space that you have, and I really appreciate that. I'm summarizing a lot of these, right, because there's a book that has them in there, and that'll be published eventually, and that's not for here, right? And the way that I save those, and the reason I save those is because like those are the ones that really prove to me that I have, you know, made an impact, made a difference, right? And I think, on the days that are like really tough, and we all know that they exist, right? And we all know that they happen as teachers, like, it could be like a random day, it could be like a rough day, it could be like the end of October or middle November right before Thanksgiving break, and it's in those moments that I like really appreciate the ability that I have to like look at my little cork board of all my like happy notes and realize that that is why I've done this for so long, and that is why I know I'm good at it, because like that is still in me, and the impact that I've made like still very much transcends whatever time I spend in education, right? Like those students, some of them have graduated, some of them are still in school, but I think that like that impact that I've made like still exists, and it's nice to see that like proof right in front of me all the time. So as I was going through that this weekend and like moving this place, I didn't put this board up last year at my school, to be completely honest, because when I started that school I kind of unfortunately knew it was going to be a placeholder just because I was in grad school and it was a very last minute hire. I loved working at where I was before, right? But I think the world just had different things in store for me, and I've talked about that before. And so I didn't move fully in because I truly also wasn't ready to like make a huge commitment, because I had just got out of school for 8 years that, did not treat me like I was there for 8 years and basically we've talked about that. And so I didn't move this corkboard and like this big happy teaching wall into my last classroom, but I moved it in this one because this year I feel a lot more like open and ready to engage with that side of things, right? So when I was going through this, I definitely did have like a big moment of like grief, for lack of better words. I think the best word that I can use to describe it is grief, because of the fact that like I was looking at all these things and reminiscing about like what it would be like if I were still at my old school, if I were, still with those kids, if I had still done all the things that I planned with them and for them and because of them. And I think I got to this point where it's like, why are these things here? I wonder sometimes if any of it matters. And I wonder sometimes if like the kids look back and like remember that they wrote these things or remember me at all, right? And I don't know if that's the point of it, right? But and I struggle with it because it's like, how do we how do we know? You know, like, does it just matter to me? And I know that's not the case, right? I think I'm getting off the topic that I wanted to make, and I think the topic that I wanted to go with this and how I was gonna connect it to all these things is like, I look back on these like little things, like these literal like broken soda cans and like sticks and like this literal packet of ramen powder, that you put in like your ramen noodles, like that are just stuck on this corkboard, that are, symbols of like the difference and the impact and the joy that I've created. And I look back at that and realize that it's like I did make an impact. And I wonder so much like, how did the people that I work with and work for not see that, right? Like I have a lot of, for lack of better words, a lot of trauma from like my first job, right? Like, how did the people I work for and work with, and if you follow the podcast for a long time, you kind of understand where I'm coming from with that, right? Like, I totally did not get like that value and respect that I feel like I deserved, and that I feel like is like up on that wall, right? Like, I feel like if an admin, my old admin, were to like read the things that are on that wall, I feel like it would shock them. If any of my old teacher friends, not even friends, if any of my old colleagues, let's call them what they are. If my old colleagues were to read that, and I think for some of them it wouldn't shock them, some of them it wouldn't be a surprise, but I think that tells a whole different story. And I wonder sometimes, like, how did they not see that? How did they somehow take all of those things away from me and prove and try to prove to me that all the things I were doing was wrong, right? How could they walk into a space that had just like this physical manifestation of like student impact and student care and like all of these different things that like give that kind of energy? How could they walk in there and then treat me as I like was doing everything wrong and nothing that they thought was good? And I went into like this like little spiral, right, about there's literal proof right here that I am a good teacher. I have been a good teacher to at least, 5 kids. If I can count the notes on my wall, like there's at least 5 kids out there that I have made an impact on, right? And I think this isn't to say like, oh, I'm the best teacher to ever exist. Like that's you guys know that's never the point. I think we don't talk about those things enough, right? Because we come off as like braggy or whatever. But I think it's important for us to realize that it's like there are moments that prove to us that we're doing a good job, and it's okay to remember those, and it's okay to embrace those, and it's okay to put them on a wall and advertise them to everyone, right? Because that is something that you're allowed to be proud about. And I was going through that, and I was wondering, like, do I care that they didn't see it? And obviously I do, otherwise I wouldn't be talking about it 2 years later, right? I just it's these messages, right? And it's these messages that we're sending, that admin is sending to their teachers, that are this kind of like hidden thing that we're teaching them, right? Like my old school very much taught me, especially, that the things I was doing was wrong, even though I had like literal proof that I was doing right by the kids, right? And I struggle with that. And I think there are going to be some more conversations about that. I know there are going to be some more conversations about that on this podcast, but it's that idea for me and that perspective for me that like really hit hard when I was like decorating my new room, because it's like, how can I have all of these and then still feel as though like that I wasn't supported or valued at my old school, right? And I think it does go into this piece of, maybe this is a whole different episode. Maybe I need to get over myself. Maybe I just need to like move on, right? I don't think that I know how. I don't really know like how or what to do to like get over that feeling sometimes. And that is the thing, right? Is like, what are we teaching each other without actually actively teaching it, right? Like, what does it say when an admin comes in my room, sees all those things, and then tells me I'm doing all these things wrong, right? Like, what does it tell me when another teacher sees all these things and the impact and notices a kid wants to come and work with me and they don't let them, right? What does that teach me? But then also, what is that teaching the kid? And that's kind of where this hidden idea of the hidden curriculum comes from, right? It's we spend a lot of time thinking about like the material in the classroom. Like we think about like, what books are we reading, what $10,000 curriculum are we using this year, right? Like what learning strategies are we using, or what books are we reading to make sure that we're providing the best instruction for our students, right? Like what strategies are we using, what are their accommodations, what is the differentiation we're doing, what does our IEPs say, right? And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. Some of those things are legal requirements, right? But the whole point is those things are the things that we plan for, those things are the things that we align and we have standards and we like work towards. That is the outward curriculum, right? Like that is the gold standard that we're like going for. But there are messages that are sent to students that aren't in that big curriculum. And this is where like the core of this conversation comes in, right? Is it's what messages are we sending to students that we don't know that we're sending? And that's what this idea of curriculum is, right? And when I define curriculum, when I think about curriculum, when I say curriculum in this episode, because I'm going to be saying that word a lot, it's going to be like one of those things where it's like you say the word over and over too many times that it starts sounding fake. So this idea of curriculum to me, and kind of what this class taught me like way back when, was through a bunch of different books and research that I did, is curriculum is not just like the books and stuff that you teach. Curriculum is not just the standards. Curriculum is not just like the goals you have in place for your kids, right? I did a whole project on this, but basically my definition of curriculum is this idea of the experiences you create in the classroom. And they can be learning experiences. They don't have to be, just they're literally the experiences that you're giving your student, right? It's the experience a student, an individual student, has in the classroom, right? And the study and development of curriculum should be focused on creating positive learning experiences for all students. And I think when we think the word curriculum, we get like this like cringe. Like I know like in the back of my head, even now, like I've done all this work and I've done all this studying about like what curriculum should be and what I think it is, and I've explored my own philosophy about curriculum. But every time somebody says, "Oh yeah, the curriculum," and it's like, okay, why does that sound so like, ugh, why does that sound so icky? Like I don't know. I think the word curriculum is just like kind of gross, right? Like we don't have to think about it like that because I think it also has those negative connotations of it's like, oh, someone's going to tell me what to teach and I'm going to have to teach it no matter what. But I think if we as teachers begin to realize that curriculum is really like the experience, the wholehearted experience that you're giving in your classroom. Like the second a student walks into that door, what is the thing they are going to experience? What is the main thing that they are going to work towards? What is the main thing they are going to understand? What are the experiences that you are providing for them in the classroom that allow them to be the people they need to be? And to me, that's what curriculum is, right? Curriculum isn't like, oh yeah, I'm going to read this book this year and that's going to be it, because it's also about like how you're teaching it and where the kids are sitting when they're teaching it, right? Like a kid is sitting in the back of the class has a different curriculum than a kid sitting in the front of the class because their experience is different, right? A kid doing the online worksheet and a kid doing the worksheet on paper has a different learning experience, right? That's what I think people need to understand, right? Is it's all of these different things come together to create the curriculum, and the curriculum isn't this one my almighty thing that just stands on its own. It is everything together all at once that defines the experience a student has in the classroom. And when I say like that experience, what messages are we sending? It's all those sorts of things, right? It's there are, a ton of messages we see, right? When a student walks in and there's a seating chart on the board, what does that tell them? And I'm not there's no right answer here, right? I'm not saying a seating chart is wrong, but I'm thinking, what does that tell them? What does it tell them if there's not a seating chart? What does it tell them if we don't let them go to the bathroom within the first 5 minutes of class, right? What does it tell them if we don't let them communicate with us about, hey, I'm going to drop my stuff off and I'm going to go to the restroom? What does it look like? What message, what learning experience is that creating to them when I don't allow them to advocate for themselves like that, right? What message is it sending them to only give them 3 minutes between classes, right? Why are we giving them only 3 minutes? Why not five? What messages do those send that are different? And again, I don't think there's a right answer here. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, students need to have exactly 4.5 minutes to like go between classes. Like, that's not what this is about, right? I think this is the hidden curriculum is more about considering these things and the messages that we're sending, right? What message does it send if we don't allow students to go visit their lockers? What message does it send if we don't allow backpacks in the room, right? And that is what the hidden curriculum is. I think you can get into bigger things with this, right? Like I talked about it in my a couple episodes ago, I think at this point, where we're talking about the idea of, disparities between different races of kids, right? Like, what message does it send if we're only sending students of color into ISS? What message is it sending if it's only students of color that are sitting in detention? What message is it sending if it's only students who have ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, into detention, right? Like, what message is it sending when we give them a tardy the second they walk past the bell, right? What message is it sending if we're not allowing kids to have snacks in the room, right? Like, what message is it sending if anything, right? And I think that's what this hidden curriculum is about, is we need to really truly decide what we are doing as a school and then understand what message that is sending, because they are learning from that, right? I got a little too on my soapbox again. I be doing that. You guys get it. If you've been watching, you get that, right? And I think about this all the time, and I think that was one of my big struggles with, finding a place to fit in at any school, is because it's I sometimes find it hard to believe why we do things if we have not fully thought out the mentality that is pervasive within those decisions. And I think that is a choice that people make without having considered it, right? And I think it's easy to say like, oh, logistics are too hard, like they can only get 3 minutes because of whatever, right? But I think it's all of those messages that we're sending all together create that learning experience, right? Like if we track kids based on their ability, if we separate two best friends because they talk too much and get in fights, right? Like what message is that sending? That it's easier to separate than to actually work through your problems, right? What message are we sending if a kid starts crying in class and they're not allowed to leave? Or what message does it send if we send a kid straight to the office when they misbehave, right? Like what message does it send when we do circle time in class for 45 minutes, right? Like all of these things aren't good or they aren't bad. I think it's important for us to realize that. It's also important for us to understand that there is messages we are sending, and that is what the hidden curriculum is about. It's this idea of all these different things in the classroom, all these different experiences. What are they? How are they impacting my students? And how can I manipulate them to make sure that they are getting the best experience that they possibly can in my room? Right. And each teacher's experience is different, right? Like each experience that each teacher wants to collate and create in their classroom is different, and that's the beauty of it, right? Like I think there's a whole hidden curriculum of a school. I think there's a whole experience that a school wants to create, and I think that is a conversation between the stakeholders within the school and the community. However, I think there's also an individual experience that each teacher needs to have in the classroom, and I think that that is a conversation between the teacher and their students, right? Obviously the students need a whole place in it, right? I I've defined it so many times, and I hope it's like getting across, right? Like I hope it's clocking to you that I'm standing on business. I just think that as educators, as administrators, as counselors, as parents of students that exist within the community, we need to make sure that the messages we are sending the students are the messages that we want to send to them, because we can think all day and we can go to the board about a new math curriculum or a new literacy curriculum or a new social studies curriculum, right? Or a new computers for the computer lab, or you know more ovens for the fax classroom. Like we can do all of these things and we can make sure that these things exist. But if we're not reflecting on and deciding as a team like all these messages come together and why we are doing those things and what messages we are sending, and then all of like it doesn't matter because of the fact that we're not considering the ramifications of it, right? And I think this conversation has been had at many levels. Like we're talking about what books we're choosing, right? Like English classrooms have been having this conversation for probably decades at this point, where it's like we need more multicultural authors. What message are we sending to students when we don't include multicultural authors in our English classrooms, right? What messages are we sending when we only read dead white guys from 120 years ago? Like what message does that send to our students, right? It's it's not even the books we read, it's the books that are available in the classroom too. Like what message does it send if a student walks into a room and all they see is a certain type of book or a certain type of, desk or a certain type of writing utensil? And I know what you're thinking is we don't have the time to talk about this and think about this and apply this into our classrooms. Like there's not enough time in the day to really go and have these conversations and worry about these things and make changes with them. But I always argue that there is. We just don't know what it looks like because the logistics are too in our head, right? Like because we're too worried on the lesson we're teaching the next day. We're not really worried about why we're teaching that lesson or what message that lesson is teaching, right? Or what message we're sending when a kid walks into our room and sees, desks in rows and desks in groups. I think when we're planning for the year, I know this comes out at a time where teachers are going back to school. Some teachers have already started in teaching and things like that. I would highly recommend that with themselves, with their trusted team members, with their trusted administrators, is to really think about the messages that you're sending students in their classroom, in the school. And I think that is like the next workable thing that I can, you know, um, prepare for you guys is to say like, what messages are you sending to students with the actions and the design choices that you make in your classroom, in your lessons? And that is what the hidden curriculum is about, right? It's the things that are under the surface. It's the things that we're not actively putting forward. It's these little moments that guide our students when we're not even guiding them intentionally. And there's a developmental thing with kids, right, where they literally soak up everything, like especially like younger grades in middle school, high school, a little bit less so because they're so much more like peer oriented. But even in that scenario, right, like are you giving them space to, talk to their peers? Are you giving them time to, form their identity among their peers? That is another message. Like if you're not allowed to talk to your friends in this class, like hello, ma'am, like please, like what do you mean? That's such an essential part of their identity development, that like what message are we sending when we don't allow students to talk to each other, right? It's shit like that. Like what messages are we sending when it's you are quiet, you are working, you are not communicating with each other? What message does that send? I forgot the like tangent I was going on with this, but I think the reflection question is, what messages are we sending students? What are we teaching students that we haven't prepared for? And that's where this idea comes from. And I got really passionate about this when I was in my first graduate program. I made, and I'm going to try to link it into the podcast notes. God, sorry, it's late, you guys. I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for you. It's super late. I need to go to bed. I'm gonna link all of these things in the podcast notes. But I, in my undergrad, I for my project, I took it was a doctoral level class actually, not to like, oh my God, I took a doctoral level class. It's not about that, okay? Sorry, I didn't mean to yell. I hate when people yell on podcasts. But part of the project of that doctoral level class was to create a curriculum, right? So I created a curriculum based around this idea of like leadership, and I incorporated like what I was doing in my class at the time. Not all of the materials are available, gonna be super honest with you right now, because I made this on my old school's account, and my old school's account is now no longer accessible to me, and they are gatekeeping that. So I, if there's something that says like, oh, documents not available, I don't have it, and I'm so sorry. I could probably get it. If this blows up, I'm gonna track them down. I will go back and communicate with my old tech department if y'all blow this up. Like if y'all want it, I'll go find it. And I will hate every minute of it, but I'll fucking do it, okay? Also on there that is accessible, things that are accessible, is I do have like a running kind of blog. I haven't added to the blog in a long time since I started posting more on the internet, but I do have all the curriculum lessons and all the things that I created on here as well. There has like presentations, there's a bunch of resources. So I'm going to link that. It's a website that I made. Like I said, it has some blog entries that will go into my eventual book that I'm going to publish. So if you want to see that, please tell your closest publisher. Tell somebody, because nobody be listening to me. Let me tell you, I got more rejections than I can count. Anyway, I'm going to link all of this in the podcast notes, and I'm also going to put like some books that I've read that kind of help me like understand these things, right? Like um there's a lot of like theory books that I read when, you're in grad school and you're like reading all these things, you get really excited about like, oh my God, yes, like the theory of curriculum, like it's super cool. And I think it's cool. I'm gonna put those in the description for you. I literally have the syllabus from that class like pulled up. And these are kind of dated. I think I took this class in, God, what does it say? 2018. So yeah, at this point, like 7 years ago. But I think like the theory behind it and the ideas are still relevant, because like I'm still talking about it, and I believe that like we haven't really shifted that way yet, because like I don't think we're thinking about curriculum in the way that like I wanted to think about curriculum 7 years ago. So I think the fact that I'm still thinking about it and still believing that it's relevant is a good sign. Not that I'm like the fucking expert. You guys know. Okay, God, I'm getting so silly. There's one final point I want to make here, because this is something that's like a little bit of like a good ending, I feel like, right? Because I don't just want to come on here and complain. I like to like leave you guys with like a, hey, here's some ideas for reflection, here's some maybe like a positive thing. I don't know where that comes from. I don't ever do that. I don't ever do that. So anyway, um this is an unhinged episode. I should not record on Monday nights after I'm done working all day. I hope you guys enjoy this, because I'm having a blast. Got a blast. Okay. Um, I don't even know how to transition to this next part. So I think there is this is a message, okay? I have gone to bat for this message in my classroom for a long time, right? As I've been saying, I truly believe that like the classroom you create and the vibes that you create in your room should be representative of you, right? Not only because of what we're talking about and like the messages you're sending, and like I want kids to walk in my room and I want kids to know that it represents me, right? And I want that feeling to be one of safety, of comfort, of that that I care for them. And I think that's the vibe that I want when students walk into my room, and I want them to know that represents me, right? I want them to know that it's a safe space for any conversation. I want them to know it's a safe space for their learning, and I want them to experience a positive thing in my classroom, right? Am I always perfect at that? Absolutely not, right? Like kids are different. I have changed throughout the years. I've grown, I've done better, I've done worse, right? Depending on the day, the time, the year. And regardless is like when you walk into my room, I want it to represent me, right? Like I want the messages that students get in my room to come directly from me, and come directly from like the persona that I have in the classroom, which is very authentic to who I am as a person. I feel like if you guys know me in real life, like the way that I am in the classroom is the way that I am in my real life. Like I do not shade a whole lot of different personalities. I'm a little bit more professional in the classroom when it comes to certain things. I'm a little more strict, right? Like I'm not going around the grocery store being like, absolutely not. We are not doing that right now. Like I don't turn on my teacher voice a lot, right? Like in the real world, like I still have that persona. But the core of both of those people, the core of like my everyday person and the core of like who I am in the classroom is very similar. And I feel like that makes a big difference because I as a kid could always see through those teachers who were being fake, and I only connected with those people who I thought were being real and authentic, at least in that world, right? Like you can't go into a classroom and pretend to be someone completely different. Like I see teachers trying to do that, and then they come to me for advice. We've talked about this before. Teachers come to me for advice, and I say, hey, maybe try being more yourself, and they're just like, yeah, I don't think so. Like I don't want to do that, and it's like, okay, then don't fucking ask me for advice, right? If you're not gonna get to know the kid, if you're not gonna get to know yourself and allow both of those things to thrive in the classroom, then I don't have any advice for you. I really just don't, right? Like that's my teaching advice. So anyway, this is so unhinged. I love this episode. I'm having so much fun. This is great. This is a blast. Got a blast. Um, the whole point of that conversation was that I got this flag in my classroom. Okay, for those of you that know the lore, you know where I'm about to go with this. I had this flag in my classroom. A student gave it to me. He came in one day, and it was I think I have a picture of it somewhere. It's on my TikTok. It's got to be somewhere. It's got to be on my somewhere, something, anything. A student gave me this because he came into my room one day and he's like, "Oh my God, Kassick, I got something for you." And I was like, "Oh my God, what is it? Thank you so much. I love getting gifts." And he holds up this flag, right? And I want to paint a picture for you. So I want you to think of a big flag. It has like has like clouds and a sun and it has like, hills on the bottom, right? Like that's kind of like the backdrop. And then just a little step forward of that, like the next layer is there's a big rainbow. There's a big rainbow. It's like imagination. It's like that rainbow, right? That was a SpongeBob reference, by the way. It has a rainbow on it, and then standing in the front of the rainbow and the backdrop is Bertram from Jesse, from the Disney Channel show Jesse. He's this big like butler looking dude. He has a purple bow tie on. He has like one of those like vests that you put under a suit. He's not wearing the suit, right? Because he's a little relaxed. He's a butler. So he works for this family and he's a butler and he's this old guy. He's like a big, Santa Claus looking guy with a little shaved like gray beard, gray hair, just on the sides, right? Because like the top is balding. So like it really presents as like this like really silly, goofy energy, like bow tie looking guy. And if you guys know anything about me, like I wear bow ties all the fucking time, or I used to at my old school, right? Like that was like my persona is I would have the bow tie, the matching glasses, and I would have like the matching shoes to go with it. I gotta dig up some pictures of that because I don't know if I have any proof that that version of me ever existed because I have evolved since then. My frontal lobe developed and I got older and I was like, I don't need to walk into the classroom like a like a looking like Blippy. Let's just be honest. If you guys know about Blippy. Anyway, I had the suspenders too. I had the suspenders too. Anyway, the way that this flag, okay, and then we have Bertram in the front, silly goofy guy, big Santa Claus looking dude, rainbow, clouds, sky, hills, but then right in the top right center of this flag, right? Like it's a big ass flag. It like hangs in my room and right across in this big heart, in this big red heart, it says, I hate kids. It brings me so much joy. It brings me so much joy, okay? To walk into my room and see a flag that just like is immediately looking on it, immediately looking at it, you can see like the beautiful sense of irony. You can see like the joy emanating from it. You can see the energy that I am trying to present, right? And you know how many times that I have been challenged on that flag. When I first got it, my principal didn't know it existed until there was a problem with it. First of all, like he was never in my room, so he never had a problem with it because he never knew what it was. So when someone complained about it, one because it was a rainbow and pride or whatever, people got so pressed about that. Like, I'm sorry that there's a rainbow in my room. Sorry that I want it to be a safe place. Sorry about that. Like, God, hello. Like that makes me want to hang it up even more, right? Because like, what the fuck? Like, are we still mad about that? It's 2025. Please be so for real. Let me put a rainbow in my room. God, fuck off. Anyway, so that was one of the issues is that a parent had complained that there was a rainbow in my room when I was like promoting the gay agenda or whatever. You know what I mean? And I just get so pressed about that. And so that made me want to keep it up even more, right? And then so my old school had like Fridays off and they would have like this program that came in on Fridays and like they would take down the flag because of that all the time and I would get so mad. It's just like are you guys joking? Are you guys being serious right now? And a lot of other people would come in. They wouldn't like immediately understand it. But every teacher that walked in, every kid that walked in, all the families that said anything about it, it was always met with an instant giggle. Like they always looked at it and they're like, I hate kids. And I had a reputation at that at my old school, right, of someone who like clearly did not hate kids. Like kids were always in my room. Kids were always coming to me for things. Kids were just they loved being in there, right? Like I created a really good space for them. And the fact that I got challenged so much about like, oh, you hate kids, like this flag should not be in here. Like you're sending a message to kids that it says I hate them. And it's like, first of all, can you like, do you know anything about meme culture? Like, please, bro, like you're like 85 years old. First of all, go on the internet, right? Look at something, laugh a little bit, like have a sense of whimsy. You know what I mean? So I was challenged so much on this flag that it became a point of contention that it's like, no, I'm going to keep it up because I want to at this point because I need to stand up for, I want to make sure that kids who are feeling attacked because like they can't have this rainbow in the room, I want to make sure that there's a safe place for them that says like, no, this is staying in here. Like I don't care what people say. This is a safe space for you. Point number one, right? Like if it in any way represented that for anybody, I wanted to keep it up because that's what matters. And then number two is it just like was such a representation of me and the vibe that I wanted to curate, right? Like this silly, goofy, satirical little moment that like a kid could come in and immediately know that that's not true, right? Because you would also walk in my room, and this is where it gets to like the message I was sending, right? Like you would also walk in my room and you would see like the big lights were never on. I had like shades on them. I had LED lights. I had fairy lights hanging around. I had like student work all over the walls. I had student work hanging from the ceiling. I had a couch in the back. I had a lot of flexible seating for kids. Like there was an exercise ball at one point. There were like pillows all around, right? Like you could walk into my room and know clearly that that space was created for middle schoolers. Like that space was created for students trying to learn and doing the best that they can to be comfortable in education. And the flag is not the first thing that you see. The first thing that you see and feel is the energy and vibes of the room. Like I'm welcoming them in. I'm, laughing with them. I'm making silly jokes. I'm sitting with them on the floor, right? Like, and then to see like a flag up that this is like I hate kids. It's like, oh my God, that's so funny. Like it brings me so much joy, right? And I think there's a lot to be said about sure, there could be misunderstandings and that could lead to conflict, right? But I think it also challenges people to get to know you, to get to understand you, right? Like, in what world would a middle school teacher have that in their room as like a reality? You know what I mean? Like, why would you get hired? Why would any kid want to be in your room all the time? And I get it. There's misunderstandings and there's not, any sort of decorum in society we have anymore that allows conversations to exist. But I think that like it encourages people and it challenges people to say like, hey, can you like explain that flag to me? I love that conversation because I get to explain that, yeah, an old student saw it and he thought immediately of me and he wanted to bring it to me. So he signed it and he brought it to my classroom and I wanted to hang it up because it's super cool and it makes me laugh. And it reminds me of like the relationship that I had with this kid, right? And all of a sudden it stands for something so much more. And when I explained that to my old principal, he was like, yeah, well, not everyone understands the context. And I was like, you then ask like what is the problem in society where we have to constantly go to like the blaming, right? Like a flag that says I hate kids isn't a weapon. A flag that says I hate kids isn't this like big controversial take, right? I'm not doing anything that says anything to the contrary or to the reality of my ability to help kids, right? Like they're like I like people took it so seriously and the message that I was sending, right, is this idea of like, joy and comfort and laughs and silliness that everyone needs in the classroom, right? So I think there's a lot to be said for those things. And I also get the other side of this, right? Well, it's also like, hey, well, you at the beginning of this said that you need to understand what message you're sending, and the message you're sending could be wrong. You're right. It could be. And again, that's why I encourage that conversation piece, right? Because I would hate for a message to be sent that I didn't mean to send. And if that's the case, then like I encourage people to come talk to me about it, right? But my old school culture was not there to do that. And last year I didn't have a problem. It was up all year. Like principals were in there, everyone laughed. Like it's a funny flag. Like it's just funny. So that all that to say, right? Like um there are pieces of the classroom experience that we do need to consider more. There are pieces of the classroom experience that we need to, finally curate and understand and really create the experience that we want, right? And as we talk about the hidden curriculum, I think there are also things that we need to unhide, right? Like we walk into a room and we expect kids to know exactly what your vibe is. We expect kids to know their place in the classroom right away. We expect kids to know how to make friends. We expect students to know how to like engage socially, right? Or in your classroom, or we expect them to know how to sit still. Or we expect them to understand the logistics of how your classroom works or how to write their name on their paper, or you know, we expect them to know all of these things when they walk into our room, and we expect them to learn them right away, but there's a lot of things that we can unhide, right, from this curriculum. Like, why aren't we teaching kids to how to make friends in middle school, right? Like, why aren't we teaching kids how to sit still? Why aren't we teaching kids how to advocate for themselves, right? Like, we just expect those things to happen naturally. And when we're talking about the whole experience of a student, there are so many students that are underserved because we expect them to learn things that they're not learning, or that we're not actively teaching them, or that we're not even like trying to teach them, right? So I think that there are things that in this idea of like talking about hidden curriculum, like, sure, what messages are we sending students, but what message should we be sending students? And what messages do we expect students to have that we're not teaching them, right? So, and those are just, I guess, some reflection questions for y'all to kind of think about this idea. But this all really comes back to what messages are we sending students with the things that we create and curate and experience in the classroom, and how do we make that the best possibility for the student. And with that, I think I don't think there's anything else on here. If you have any questions about this, or want to look through my materials more, or want me to talk a little bit more about some things, like, I'm more than happy to do so. I honestly like really enjoy this. I think I get sometimes bogged down by the fact that it's like, oh yes, I make a joke that there's really only four of you listening every single week, and that's fine. But I am getting some sort of value out of this. I think if nothing else, I have a lot of stuff that I can post somewhere and say like, hey, yeah, here's some thoughts. Like, if you want me to share some more, if I have a record of it, and that's enough for me. It doesn't have to be huge right now. Maybe someday. Anyway, I am going to stop talking because y'all have listened to me for 42 minutes. And if you've listened to all my episodes of the podcast, you've probably listened to me talk for far too long. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. If you've watched to the end, share it with somebody, slide into my DMs, leave a comment, review, do all the things, please. Share it with somebody. Did I already say share it with somebody? I think you should probably share it with somebody because that really helps me. So anyway, I'm super proud of you. Thanks for being here. I will see you next time.